A team that'll matter a lot in deep leagues because they're deep at pass catcher, Jay, is Jacksonville. Brian Thomas Jr., their rookie first-rounder wide receiver, 81% route participation with Trevor Lawrence this preseason. Gabe Davis, 100%. I mean, this is a deep wide receiver room. That's without talking about Christian Kirk and a guy like Evan Ingram that had a 29% target share from Lawrence this preseason.
Yeah, Brian Thomas has lit up training camp by all accounts. Plenty of viral highlights. Kind of reminds me a little bit of George Pickens from 2 years ago. But what do you think, Connor? Do you think that is he polished enough where he could be, the next breakout great rookie wide receiver?
From a fantasy perspective, just this year, because I love Brian Thomas Jr. for the long term. I think he could be a number one, a star. It feels like it's going to be a little Rashid Shaheed-like this year, where you get the 2 catches for 82 yards, and you're like, man, I got to go get him on the waivers, or I'm glad I drafted him late. And then the next week, you might get 1 catch for 9 yards. There's just a lot of mouths to feed in this offense. He is a rookie. He is a guy that, coming out of college, was all about the vertical speed. He's got all the talent in the world. But, Matthew, I don't know if there'll be a massive fantasy volume impact year one for him.
No, I think that's the challenge here. I feel like the hype on him is getting a little bit too much, again, because I just feel like they're going to spread it around in Jacksonville. And let me put it this way. I think there's going to be some big games for him, but I think there'll be some big games for Gabe Davis. And I think, if I'm investing in the Jacksonville passing game, give me Christian Kirk. That's who I want, who's going to be able to play the slot full time, which is where he's most effective. He's got the history with Doug Peterson. He's got the history with Trevor Lawrence. When I spoke to Doug Peterson at the Combine, Kirk is who he specifically mentioned about how they feel like he's much more effective in the slot, and that's where they want to play him. So that was part of the reasons why they went out and drafted Brian Thomas Jr. It's why they assigned Gabe Davis as a free agent. You've got Ingram there as well, and obviously Etienne's going to touch the ball a lot. So I feel like this is one of those guys that really like him a lot, but feels like you're going to have to wait till the second half of the year for him to pay off. And I don't know that it's going to be consistently unless there's an injury.
The Panthers often an offense in fantasy that's left for dead, but Matthew, kind of interesting is Bryce Young looks better in his second training camp, second preseason.
Almost would have to be.
Diontae Johnson in town, 29% target share from Bryce on that one drive.
Yeah.
Adam Thielen's still out there, 92% route participation with Young, 64% in the slot. So the Panthers could have a notable pass catcher this year. It's just a matter of, do you have to pick between Thielen and Diontae Johnson? You probably lean Johnson, obviously.
Yeah, I don't think you have to pick between them. You're just picking Diontae Johnson.
Adam Thielen was wildly productive for what we thought he was going to be last year with Bryce Young.
But my point is that as bad as Bryce Young was last year, for the first 9 weeks of the season, Adam Thielen was like, a top 10 fantasy wide receiver.
He supported him.
He was ridiculous. And so Dave Canales has already come out and said, we're going to run this offense through Diontae Johnson. I think Diontae Johnson has always been somebody that, he's had this weird bad touchdown luck when he was in Pittsburgh, but he's always been a very talented player. Very talented, great route runner. And so the fact that Bryce Young looks better, the fact that there are other weapons besides Diontae Johnson that you still have to, you're still going to have to cover Adam Thielen. You're still going to have to deal with Jonathan Mingo and Xavier Legette and, all the guys there in Carolina. Especially, by the way, once they get Jonathan Brooks back. I have a lot. I'll just say this. I have a lot of Diontae Johnson because he always goes cheap. He always goes in the middle rounds, and he's just going to get cheap volume. He's like, if you went zero wide receiver, again, that's not really a thing, but he's a good, as we talked about zero RB, those cheap volume guys in the middle rounds. I feel like Diontae Johnson is the wide receiver version of that no one's going to be excited about him, but he's going to get just massive volume. And Bryce Young being even 15% better than he was last year is going to be a massive improvement.
Yep. Diontae keeps on getting banged up at training camp, but it seems all fine. It seems like he's going to play. There's just some minor knocks. Said this before, I'll say it again. Dave Canales on DraftKings is plus 1,800 to win Coach of the Year, and the Panthers are plus 550 to make the playoffs. That doesn't reconcile. If they make the playoffs, he's going to get a ton of credit for fixing Bryce Young, and it seems like there's a chance that Bryce Young is fixed.
Again, this is somebody who fixed Geno Smith in Seattle, fixed Baker Mayfield, and now, to your point, if they fix Bryce Young, and what's crazy is we've talked about this before, but just if C.J. Stroud wasn't C.J. Stroud last year, it doesn't make as big a spotlight on Bryce Young. Bryce Young was the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft a year ago, and no one was going what are the Panthers doing?
Right.
There was some debate about him versus Stroud, but no one was whoa, what's with that guy? There was more controversy about Baker Mayfield at #1 overall going into that draft
with Darnold.
Than there was, which is great, you know. But like, but no seriousness, right? You know, versus versus Bryce Young. Like Bryce Young was considered by everyone to be one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the draft last year, and so a guy that was that productive at Alabama doesn't suddenly just can't play football.
Yep, and tying into that, look how good the Colts offense looked last year, and particularly their offensive line looked after Frank Reich left. And so maybe that is another element of this, the Frank Reich leaving Carolina. Canales comes in. I think there's a lot of upside for the Panthers on offense.
Okay, you have a chance to win $1 million in the NBC sweepstakes on Yahoo Fantasy. Just download the redesigned Yahoo Fantasy app or go to NBCSports.com/fantasymillion for additional details. What are you waiting for?
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.